Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the Salescast Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we are on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Daryl Amy.
Are you ready to discover what sets the best workplaces apart? We are so proud to introduce Culture from the Heart, our newest show launching in January. We'll be diving into conversations with the CEOs of heart-centered companies, leaders who built cultures that inspire and thrive.
And we're on a mission to find the heart-centered CEOs of America. Join us as we uncover the secrets behind award-winning workplaces and learn how these visionaries lead with purpose.
And you can help. Do you work for a company with a heart-centered CEO? We would love to interview them. You can nominate them now at www.culturefromtheheart.com. Look forward to the show in January, and if you have a CEO that's heart-centered, nominate them today at www.culturefromtheheart.com. Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Daryl Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Oh, what isn't going on? Great seeing you, Daryl. We're in for a treat today. Where are we at? I mean, we are knocking. I almost got party favors out, Daryl. It's almost time to ring in the new year. This has been one great, phenomenal 2024.
Yeah, and as we knock on the door of 2025, as this is being released, we've got the master connector himself in the studio. I can't wait to introduce you to Steve Spiro. But absolutely, this week, Larry, is my favorite week of the year. Anyone that's listened to the podcast over the last several years knows that this is my favorite week because to me, this week between Christmas and New Year's, it's just one of those weeks to really reflect and just envision and plan and dream and get everything ready to go for the new year. And I hope you're right in the middle of all that. If you're doing that, I want to let you know I'm cheering you on. This is a phenomenal time as we just get ready to move into 2025, making it the best year yet. So lots of stuff to reflect on, lots of things to plan for, and I absolutely love this week.
You know, I mean, I love the week as well, but as we get ready to bring Steve in, there's somebody I just want to give a shout out to. And this person has waved the flag all year for numerous years around selling from the heart and now selling in a post-trust world. I just wanted to give a special shout out to a gentleman by the name of Mr. Mark Bregman. And Mark, I know you watch the podcast and I know you listen into it. I just want to say I appreciate you for spreading the message, for helping me spread the message, for waving the flag. You're a heart-centered salesperson. We appreciate you.
Yeah, hats off. Appreciate you. And thank you to you, Mark, and to everybody who is just being a champion for authenticity and trust right here in this sales profession we all love. Well, hey, today we're excited to introduce Steve Spiro. He's a dynamic figure who started his journey in the bustling advertising sector right out of college in New York City. And since then, he's evolved into a renowned business automation consultant and an inspiring speaker. Steve is a fourth degree black belt in karate and first degree in jiu-jitsu, and he credits much of his success to the discipline, integrity, and fearlessness he developed through the martial arts. Well, growing up shy and introverted, Steve never imagined he would become known as the Master Connector. His transformation began in earnest with martial arts, where he found not just physical strength, but profound mental and spiritual growth. This journey of self-development propelled him to launch the Master Connector Show on LinkedIn Live, where he often delves into the art of building genuine and impactful connections. Well, join us today as Steve discusses how to foster authentic relationships and achieve personal and professional breakthroughs, inspiring all of us to shift from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance. Steve, welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast. It's awesome to have you here.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate the great introduction. I was wondering who you were talking about, but I appreciate it.
Dude, we're talking about you, Steve. Come on, man.
I guess so. But hey, what's going on, everyone? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct.
There we are. Hey, this is going to be so much fun, Steve, and everyone's going to get so much out of this conversation as we get it started, though. You know the question that every guest on the Selling from the Heart podcast answers. That is, what does it mean to you to sell from the heart?
Absolutely. I mean, you touched on it in the intro a little bit, right? Which is being authentic. I think what happens for me, and I was, and maybe we'll delve into it, maybe we won't. You'll have to check out some of my stuff, maybe go connect with me if you want to learn more. But I was such a broken human being for many years. And what that created was a self-focused, self-absorbed kind of mentality. To me, selling from the heart is being others focused, being authentic, sharing some of your vulnerabilities, being able to really focus on other people and find out what their needs are, what their desires are, and really look to ways to help and genuinely look to help, not look to manipulate or get or take advantage of, but to really want to genuinely help somebody. It's kind of the golden rule in action, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And to me, that's what it's all about for me when you ask that question.
Oh, this is so good. So there's one word that you use. I got to ask. So we've asked you, what's it mean to you to sell from the heart? Now I want to ask you, Steve, I'm throwing you on the hot seat. Steve can handle this. What's authenticity mean to you?
That's a good one. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's being vulnerable and sharing some of those insecurities. And, I mean, you don't want to be in the middle of it when you're sharing about it, but when you've overcome it, right? So I like to speak on the fact that I was picked on and bullied and learning disabled and dyslexic, because I feel like it's something that's relatable to people. And then I've found that the more I'm relatable and I share that vulnerability, we talked about it, right? The walls come down, you break barriers, people start to open up. And I found that I've created incredibly genuine, authentic connections by being vulnerable and sharing those insecurities.
And here we are today with the master connector out of all of that. And I'm so looking forward to this conversation, Steve, about connection and how we build our network. Larry always says here at Selling from the Heart that your network is your net worth. And You've developed an incredible network of people. Why do you believe that connecting, building that network is so critical to success in today's world?
Yeah, I mean, you look at someone like LeBron James, right? He got $1 billion contract with Nike. Yes, he's an incredible, basketball player, but it's because he has a huge network. Ronaldo, right? In the soccer world, right? Or football, if you're from anywhere, but U.S. here. Again, huge income endorsements because of a huge network. So we know that that's the case, but I believe that having a big network, number one, it allows you the ability to collaborate, allows you the ability to, if you are to lose a job, you have a network of people you could fall back to. If you're in the place where you're looking to grow connections, I think what's great is, as I've reached out professionally to people, if you're talking to a high-level CEO or CFO or some C-level, and they notice, if you've got a big network, especially on LinkedIn, if they notice that 16 of their colleagues that are all C-suite people are also connected with you, they're going to want to connect with you. Like, okay, my colleagues know something I don't know. And so therefore, I believe having that big network really provides credibility and will help you open doors as well.
Hey, I really want to dive into this, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because I think, and Steve, you and I have spoken about it. We talked about it right before we started recording this. Yeah. I believe this is the missing link for so many in sales leadership, even executives, is there's a difference. And I'd be curious your thought on this, Steve. I believe there's a difference between building a network and building a strategic network. You want to touch on that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know one thing. I'm not looking to grow numbers. I'm looking to create connection, right? And so, number one, if somebody from Zimbabwe, and nothing wrong with them, I'm sure they're an incredible person, but I may not connect with them. I'm looking to be strategic and thoughtful about who I'm going to connect with. I'm not a snob, don't get me wrong, but I also believe that it's got to be in line with your values. If people are going to want to pitch me and they're going to pitch slap me, that's with a P, by the way, I didn't get nasty there. I'm not going to probably connect with them or if I do, I'll probably unconnect and maybe block, right? But I'm looking for real connection because everybody that I connect with, this may sound crazy because I'm up to 30,000 on LinkedIn, but everybody that I connect with, I want to get on a call, Zoom call, phone call, and have a conversation with. And, because I feel like what good is having a network or being connected if you aren't truly connected. Mm-hmm. So I want to know because you know what? My phrase I use all the time is you never know, because you don't know. You don't know what collaboration is going to happen. You don't know who they know. It's so many things can happen when you are very open. So to me, it's real. That's why I don't call myself the master networker. I call myself the master connector, because connection, real human connection is so important. And it doesn't just happen through just building numbers.
I love this. I'm just sitting here thinking about, we've talked about connecting with people on LinkedIn. Now we're, what was that, 2007 when that came into the market? Yeah. We're coming up on like the 20th birthday here really soon of LinkedIn. Yet so many in the sales world still have, not really gotten their arms around it. One of the reasons I love this conversation, Steve, is, there's a lot of pundits out there. There's a lot of consultants. There's a lot of people talking about connecting on platforms like LinkedIn, but you're in the mix right now. You're in the middle of it. You still carry a quota with a company and all of that. And I'm just curious because we hear a lot of people going, "Oh, come on, guys. My clients aren't on LinkedIn. This isn't worth my time." What would you say to a salesperson here at the threshold of 2025 that is saying that these social platforms aren't relevant to them?
Listen, I would say you're missing it, in my opinion, right? My humble but accurate opinion. You can disagree with me, but you'll be wrong. Okay. But anyway, yeah, listen, LinkedIn. Yeah, I might say that about other platforms, especially because I don't want to, I'm not on TikTok because I'm just going to I know I'll just get like in the vortex. I just like never come out again. Like I'll get sucked in. But LinkedIn I think it's really good, and it's a good place to be on. And to me, it's almost more important than having a website these days. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. And LinkedIn is an opportunity for you to kind of display who and what you're about, your values. And there's so many things in there. You can have recommendations. And if you think people aren't Googling you when you reach out to them, you're dead wrong. They absolutely are. And so if you have a very strong LinkedIn profile, when you Google me, you're going to find probably the first thing that comes up is my LinkedIn profile. And I've spent a lot of time, I've been very purposeful about it, but it's super important to put together that profile because, maybe there's some people that aren't on it. Okay, fine. But a lot of people are. And I will tell you that most people, before they take your call, they're going to research you. They want to know what this person's about. And, so, they may not find your website, but they'll find you, and you want to make sure that you are representative and you're authentic about who you are. And hopefully if you are on some of those other platforms, your message, who you represent yourself about is authentic. It's the same. It's consistent. So crucial. But so don't sleep on LinkedIn for sure. It's definitely a place you need to be.
I want to play. I got to play on this because, and I'd be curious your thoughts, Steve. Salespeople, I really want us to key in on this. I know you work so hard to get that appointment with somebody.
Yeah.
Whatever the title of the people you're going after, it takes some effort, right? You're just not going to pick up the phone, send one message, and all of a sudden set up an appointment. It's a series of events. You work really hard on this to connect with somebody, for them to agree to give you 30 minutes of their valuable time or however much you're asking for. So that's the first part of this connection thing. Is you work really hard to connect. Don't rest on your laurels that person, male or female, afterwards is not going to want to find out who this person is. What's the window into this person? What are they all about? What makes this person tick? So there's that connection where you connected to make that meeting. But I think true connection happens afterwards when that person, that executive goes, who is this Daryl Amy guy? Who is this Steve Spiro guy? What's this person all about? This is where connection takes on a whole new meaning.
That's true. Yeah, no doubt about it. And I've gotten some incredible meetings and appointments through being on LinkedIn and through messaging on LinkedIn. I've heard this said that a lot of high level executives, they may not take your call, but they're on their couch, maybe binge watching Netflix, and they're scrolling through LinkedIn, and they're going to see your message. That the emails that come through, everyone gets a ton of them, right? They go into spam, or it's just so overwhelming. But those messages, those direct messages, right, especially if they're not pitchy, are going to get their attention. And I've gotten quite a few appointments and calls through that. And the big thing, I'll just say this, it's making sure your message is others focused. I touched on that before. It's an add value for them. It's the WIFM, right? We know that in sales. What's in it for me? In other words, them. And making sure that there's something. And again, back to your question before, why a big network? To me, it's a huge asset. So when I say I'd like to get on a call with you because maybe I can open some doors. Imagine if you're calling a C-level person that's probably a lot more successful than you are, but you've got a huge network and they like the idea. They'll take your call because maybe you're going to be able to open up some doors for them. Imagine. And so having a big network is a big asset. I use it a lot, not in a manipulative way, but actually I follow through with it. Many of my calls ends up with, hey, put together a list of 6 people. I'll connect you. Just tell me the 6 you want. Because most people say, hey, if you see anyone in my network, I'll make an introduction. No, to me, that's like white noise. I actually I say 6 names, scroll through my LinkedIn, come up with a list, send it to me, text it to me. And usually within 2 to 3 days, an intro of each of those 6 go out. So anyway, if you're adding value and providing some value, people are going to take that call. They're going to want to connect with you. For sure.
I think that's so powerful because as sales professionals, we want to build trust early. We want to add value early. How can we do that? One of the biggest things, other than the insight you bring to the table, is the connections, the people that and we can add values. That's tremendous. So I'm curious. I want to hit a little bit on the do's and don'ts here from Steve Spiro's perspective. So let's start with the negative side. What are some things that our listeners in today's environment, like we said, LinkedIn's not brand new. In today's environment, what does not work? Like, what should you avoid doing at all costs?
I mean, I touched on it before, right? Let's stop the pitch slapping. Let's stop the spamming. It doesn't work. I mean, whenever I get it, I ignore it. Sometimes I'll block people. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to be sold. Now, I know we're talking in a sales professional role, and there is that place for it, but nobody wants to be pitched. So let's avoid that. I would say stop that. Stop, the mass messaging on LinkedIn. That's one thing I'll throw out there. And then the other thing is, if you are fortunate enough to get on a call with somebody, or if let me start with that. So if you get on a call with somebody, ditch I like to call it the what do you do dance. So what do you do? What do you do? Right. And I say, hey, can we just not do the what do you do dance? And I say with a smile, great attitude. I'd love to hear your story. And get them talking, right? It's a lot of classic sales books, How to Win Friends and Influence People and all these other books, right? It speaks about it. And Frank Betcher, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success and Selling, great book. And he talks about some of his most successful meetings / clients from him saying the guy was about to kick him out. He said, how in the world did you get into that industry? Whatever the industry was, I forget. And 3.5 hours later, the guy was still there and he got a big sale from it. So just be interested in them, learn their story, get good at telling your story, and don't make it pitchy. Make it where you can incorporate a little bit about what you do, but there should be some elements of interest where people lean in and they want to get to know you. And then if you get to meet somebody in the real world, have a elevator pitch, but not one that's pitchy. Make it something again that people like, I really need to get to know this person, because the chances of them wanting to do business with you right now is probably slim to none, and Slim just left. It's not happening, right? So you gotta really come up with something that people like, I really want to talk to this person. So those are my things, is make sure you're engaging, you're others focused, come up with a good story. Don't pitch people. You get the gist of it.
Mm-hmm. What I like about this, there's a sense of playing the long game with this.
Yeah.
In terms of, this is a form of prospecting. This is get it out on the table. It's not the form of prospecting. It's a form of prospecting. But there's some I want to touch on, because this goes back to the introduction. It goes back to backstory and so forth. Is you didn't all of a sudden wake up one day and you're Steve Spiro, the master connector. Right. I mean, you got an interesting backstory in all of this. What inspired you to go from being this introvert Steve Spiro, a broken person, to Steve Spiro, this outgoing salesperson who's got this massive network? You got to shed some light on this.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I was an introvert, still am. And I would rather sit in front of a TV and eat Chunky Monkey ice cream than talk to anybody. I mean, that's the true Steve Spiro. But I knew that I wanted more, and it had a higher purpose. And so got in the advertising world. Eventually that kind of, the economy shifted and I was out of work. I was actually, a year before that, had been introduced to an extremely successful entrepreneur, wildly successful. And he challenged me to meet 3 strangers every day. And, I did. I started doing it. It stretched me. And I'm from New York. So if you talk to strangers, you get killed. It's like you're going to get kidnapped, something. It's like not good. But I did it. I still do it to this day. I went to Charlotte. I met 15 new people. And what I mean that is, I'm not talking like, I just said hello and I got their name. We exchanged cell phone numbers. Real 15 in 3 days. Like on Friday, traveling down, I met 5. While I was there, I met 5 and 5 on the way back. And I love it. Right. But here's the thing. For me, what happened was I started to realize that again, I have a hard purpose, and then I get laid off and I'm now get into the copier world. Right. And that's door-to-door sales. And yeah, it's like crazy. And on the evolutionary scale, below the chimpanzee and the orangutan is the copier salesman. And if you're listening and you're one of them, you understand, right? It's just not highly regarded, but I did it. And a lot of it was door to door, knocking on doors, all that crazy stuff. And I started to realize, you know what, I needed to do something different. And that's when the LinkedIn journey started happening. That's when my networking started happening. And how am I going to get in front of people to build rapport and break the barrier of that knocking on door and the gatekeepers and all the kind of stuff you deal with? And so that's what happened. And so I started growing a network, started going to networking meetings consistently, and just started to really grow from there. And I think that's the big missing link there for a lot of professionals, right? It's, you're trying to pitch, you're trying to knock on a door, you're trying to call, you can email, but let's build relationships. Let's start, like you said, Larry, I think it was Larry said it, maybe Daryl, I don't know, about the long game. Let's play the long game, because the short game, it doesn't typically work, right? You might, again, people do business with people they know, like, and trust, right? And so how are you going to establish that in a very short period of time? You need to play that long game. Absolutely.
I love it. I want to go back to this trip to Charlotte because I'm fascinated. 5 people on the way down, 5 while you're there, 5 on the way back, and you got cell phone numbers. Like, you didn't just say, "Hi, my name's Steve. What's yours?" You had a conversation with these people. So I'm curious. Walk us through. You meet someone like me on an airplane or at the gate waiting. How does the master connector bridge into these conversations and connections?
All right. Well, listeners, you're going to get the secret right now. Eventually, I'm going to write another book. I have a book already out called The Tao of a Master Connector, and it's beginning a little bit of it. But this is the how-to. That was more the philosophy, the way. So here we go. You ready? So yep. I have a formula, and it's called break the ice. Where you from? What do you do? We should stay in touch. Break the ice. Where you from? What do you do? We should stay in touch, right? It's 4 steps. Now, in those 4 steps are a lot of little mini steps. So first thing I do is break the ice. I say something like, "Hey, Daryl, you almost, no, I'm sorry, Larry, you almost did, getting my face here already. Like I was there very recently, and I got rid 6 months ago. I got rid of it. Anyway, whatever it is to break the ice. Hey, nice glasses. Hey, I see you have a NC State, jersey on. You go to NC State, whatever, break the ice, whatever it is. The most clever ones sometimes don't work. So just whatever, say something. And people are like either dog. They're like dogs or cats. They're either like a Doberman Pinscher. Okay, walk away, right? Or they're like a golden retriever. Okay, you keep petting them. Or they're just like a cat. Like they don't care and they walk away. So people are the same. It's nothing to do with me. I've learned it's them. And a conversation starts. And I love the fact when you're traveling because people tend to be more friendly and they tend to be more talkative that way anyway. So where you're from, and of course, so breaking the ice, and that breaking the ice can go a few layers deep, right? If they said they went to NC State, or if they, happen to be, the bald head thing, like I was at a networking event, and my icebreaker at the networking event was a shaved head guy too. I was like, so you're part of the club too? He's like, what do you mean? I said, yeah, oh, okay. It's funny. So anyway, break the ice. Then what do you do? And that could go like, are you from Charlotte? Are you from New York? Where you from, blah, blah. And you could go on and on and on. Married, kids, what brought you to Charlotte? What brought you to, whatever. You can go on 3, 4, 5, 6 layers. And then, what do you do? Right. And that could go on. How long you been there? How'd you get the job? Is that what you wanted to do? What's your long-term vision? Lots of conversations and layers on that. And then by the time we've had that conversation, it's 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 minutes. I've kind of created a mini friendship. And I usually say, hey, we should stay in touch. And, sometimes they ask me what I do. And I have what that already laid out, based upon what I say. And, if you want to hear it, I'll tell you. I say I'm involved with several companies, started my first company out of college in advertising, did that for a lot of years, transitioned into technology consulting. I had a karate studio. I do speaking, broadcast. I wrote a book. Just a few things. So what does that do? That gives people that, wow, this is an interesting guy. Not I sell copiers. Now, don't do that anymore. But even if I did, I would throw something, but it would be other stuff too. So they want to lean in. And we should stay in touch. And take out our cell phones and I shoot them my contact number and I shoot them a text and I usually go connect with them on LinkedIn right away. And that's it. And I'll tell you, it's incredible how many relationships I've created that way.
Hey, thanks for sharing. I'm sitting there listening to what Steve's saying, and I know what a lot of people are saying out there right now. You're kidding me. It's that simple, right? But it is. This isn't rocket science stuff. What Steve just dropped is not college level PhD type stuff. This is just, right? No disrespect, Steve. This is just average, ordinary conversation, right?
We did it when we were in kindergarten. We did
100%. You did it when you were kids. 100%. Yeah. This stuff actually works. There's no rocket science behind any of this. But it's you just ask the questions, but then as you listen, it's going to layer in something else. It's going to layer in something else. And before you know it, y'all are having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hard, Steve.
It isn't. Absolutely.
Love it. Well, this is Rich. So break the ice. Where are you from? What do you do? We should stay in touch. Steve, I know now what many of our listeners are thinking is, how do we stay in touch? How do I get more Steve Spiro in my life?
Go. That's it. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'd love to connect with you. If you're listening, I'd love to connect with you. Unless you're from Zimbabwe. I'm just kidding. Anyway, SteveSpiro.com is my personal website. If you're looking for, to bring on a higher speaker, Spiro-global.com. So Spiro-global.com is my speaking website. Just connect with me on LinkedIn for sure. That's easiest, right? If you Google search me or if you go to LinkedIn and you type in Steve Spiro, I am the first one that comes up. The guy with the bald head, obviously. It'll say Master Connector. But yeah, I'd love to connect. Those are probably the three easiest ways to get me. SteveSpiro.com, Spiro-global.com, and LinkedIn for sure.
Awesome. Well, we'll get all those links in the show notes. Steve, thank you so much for connecting with all of us today, sharing your wisdom. Absolutely. This has been really, really fantastic.
Thank you, Steve. This is awesome.
Appreciate you having me on. It's been amazing.
Our pleasure.
Such a cool conversation, Larry. And, we talk a lot at Selling from the Heart about getting back to the basics. And here, as we're looking over, the fence into a new year, I think one of the great things that that all of us can recommit to is getting back to just building relationships. And Steve and what he shared, and we're all going to want to grab a copy of his book. These are the fundamentals that in a world of shiny objects, it's easy to get distracted from. But I think it's a good time for all of us to recommit to the power of connection and make that a huge part of this year to come.
Absolutely. I got to go back to something that Steve had said. And Steve, I know you're listening to this. So I'm going to go back to something that somebody challenged Steve with many years ago, right? Connect with 3 strangers, I believe Steve said, every single day. Okay, so as this relates to you as sales professionals out there, here's our 2025 challenge. Connect and engage in conversation with 3 new people every single day in 2025. Now, at the end of 2025, you come back, you send us messages back at Selling from the Heart and said, this is what happened in 1 year after I connected and had conversation with 3 new people a day. Thank you, Steve, for sharing that. But I challenge everybody on this. 2025, make it the year to connect and have conversation with 3 new people a day. Do the math on that. At the end of the year, you know how many people you're going to have conversation with. Watch what happens to your funnel.
When you put 1,000 new relationships in your relationship funnel, you're not going to have to worry about your sales funnel. Nope. This has been an amazing conversation. And speaking of relationships, as we wrap this year, first of all, Larry and I, we want to be maybe the first to say Happy New Year to you. We're looking forward to a great year ahead together. And I love over 2024 how this community, this audience of heart-centered sales professionals and leaders has grown. 2025 is going to be even bigger as we expand this just vision for heart-centered leaders and sales professionals. So we're glad you're along for the ride. But will you do us a favor? Will you leave us a review on this podcast? When you do, it helps us spread the word. And in 2025, we'll be sharing some of those comments that come in on the reviews. It means a ton to us, but it also helps us spread the word. And this movement of authenticity and trust right here in the sales profession we all love is fueled by you. You, the listener, you, our friends out there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we wish you all the best in the new year ahead.
No, absolutely. It's been a great year. Thank you to everybody. But I just want to let you know something. In 2025, Selling from the Heart podcast celebrates their 8th birthday.
Wow.
We've been doing this consistently week in and week out now. In April of 2025 is going to be 8 years. So thank you for being there. Thank you for being part of this community. Have a great, great 2025, and we'll talk to you all soon.
That's right. And until then, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, become a master connector, and most of all,
sell from the heart.